Welcome to the Creepy Kingdom. We are all about the creepy side. Theme parks, films, haunts, and everything in between. We create original films, live streams, vlogs, podcasts, and more. Hit that subscribe button to make sure that you always keep it creepy.
Hello and welcome to Tea Time with Serena. This is Serena Valentino, and I'd like to introduce my co-hosts Tanitia and Gretchen.
Hello, tea time.
Hello, ladies.
We came prepared.
We did. We came prepared. I wish I can do cheers with you.
I know, virtual cheers. Cheers.
Oh, I'm taking a sip here. So in our very first episode of Tea Time, we are talking with Tanitia and Gretchen about Never Never, getting their thoughts, and I'm sure their guesses on who's going to be next, because I know those ladies love to know who's going to be next. They always have their theories. We are also going to be listening to an interview I did with John York, the gentleman who did the voice for Never Never, A Tale of Captain Hook. I'm so excited. I had such a good time speaking with John. He's a sweet, dear man. And I know that you're all going to love getting a chance to get to know him and hearing about his journey being Captain Hook for a time. Well, really, he was James for a time, but we'll get to that later. And and later in the show, I'm going to be reading a portion of Raising the Horseman, a book that's coming out on September 6th. And just to give you all like a preview, but right now I think we're going to dive right into discussing Never Never. And I'm interested to hear from the ladies which or both of them listened to John York's reading, narration, or read it, or both.
I did both. I read it and I listened. Yeah.
You did.
Loved it.
Oh, John York was amazing. I loved his voices, and the different characters were so good. And obviously I got the physical copy first, so I read it first, and then I was like, I have to listen to the audiobook. I need to like hear this. So it was great. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big pirate fan. For folks who know me, I have a Pirates of the Caribbean themed bathroom. So I'm really into swashbuckling and drinking the rum and where's the rum all gone and all that good stuff. So, I just loved all the characters and the pirate lore. And, I loved that we got more, odd sisters in a certain form, which I'm excited to discuss that piece as well. More magic, more mythology. Like it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, when I was talking to John, I mean, you'll hear this later when we share the interview that I did with him. But one of his favorite voices to do, he said, was Blackbeard. So yeah, he was really surprised that character like showed up, and he said he had the most fun like doing his voice. I loved like talking with him and listening to like how he took on the character. And this is one of the things that James mentioned, is that John kind of was really subtle in his character when he was James. But as like the story progressed, he became more and more like Hook until the end, when he truly was Hook. He was truly like the Hook that we knew from the films. Would you ladies agree? Like, is that the sense that you got from John's performance?
I did. I really felt like you have showed the progression into madness for all of these characters, but the way you did Hook was a little bit different, and I really think that John brought that. Like, I read the physical copy and then I listened, and he really made that very apparent, and I thought it was brilliant. I really liked how you did that.
Thank you so much.
Definitely. You got the evolution, I think. just again in the performance and the voice work, and then also too just in the way James to Hook spoke and carried himself, and you could see the evolution, but then also I think his origin made so much sense in how I know him from the classic Disney movie. Like I was like, oh, that does tie together so well, that he came from this sort of elite and wealthy background, but had these bigger dreams of magic and adventure. So it felt like a very natural progression based on what the knowledge I already came in with of Hook.
That's awesome. I mean, for me, like, in the film, he was very different, obviously, than when he was James, like at the beginning of our story, because I wanted him to be a brave pirate. I wanted him to have adventures. I wanted him to be smart and well-read and charming and interesting. And I wanted him to have so much fun before he got to Neverland and before he was stuck there forever. And I totally grew to fall in love with James, like as I was writing his character. And it broke my heart that I knew where his story was headed. And I mean, if I could have just been like, James, please just stay in the Dead Woods, stay with Cersei, stay with Prim, stay with Hazel. That's where you belong. I would, because I feel like like the Many Kingdoms was the perfect place for James. He could explore anywhere he wanted. There would be so many things for him to learn about, so many people to meet, so many interesting adventures for him to go on. And for me, like when James was taking me on this journey, when he's in the Many Kingdoms, I'm like, why isn't he staying? Why isn't James staying here? This really is the perfect place. And it was just a testament to how badly he wanted to, he wanted to be in Neverland. He gave up, a invitation from the Queen of the Dead, to go to Neverland. So, yeah.
I mean, there's a certain amount of respect that you have to go through and just go, I signed up for this and I'm going to see it through. And I think that at that point, I kind of respect that in him, because he had the opportunity to do something different. And he was like, no, this is what I signed up for. This is what I've been working for my whole life. I've got to give it a chance. I respect that too. I think that was really awesome.
So at home in the Dead Woods, he felt that he really resonated with Cersei, Hazel, and Prim. Thought he was an extraordinary person, and but he still was like, no. I mean, he even betrayed Cersei in a way, because he wanted his purpose so badly. And and readers will find out, those who haven't read the book yet, it's not just about going to Neverland. There's a deeper, more profound purpose within him that he wanted, and the Odd Sisters promised him, and that's why he betrayed Cersei. And I'm just sad that he did, because I would have loved for him to just had a better life in the Dead Woods.
Oh,
he definitely would have been happy.
Yeah. How was it like for y'all? I know that you guys love the Odd Sisters. I know you like the Dead Woods. What was it like for y'all to be there, like, again, after all this time?
It was great. I missed the Odd Sisters meddling. I missed, them, sort of being very active participants in the downfall of whatever villain story we're sort of telling. And then it's fascinating now that we have the Odd Sisters merged. Was a very interesting experience of, like, they were split into three and then they are now put back together. And and are still having like this internal dialogue, and they're all still in there. And I thought that was really, it was fun to listen to and kind of get to play with that idea. And yeah, I love being in the Deadwoods in the magical realm, and all that stuff is so good. Talks of curses and destinies and fate and what do we have control over. And yeah, I was really into that.
I want to say how beautiful the Deadwoods are. Like, they are so lovingly created that I am transported there, and I can just see everything. I can see the stone buildings and the Rapunzel flower, how it just shines like this beacon in the middle of it. And it's spectacular. Absolutely spectacular.
Another painting I need to have somebody paint and then add it to my wall.
Yes.
That would be awesome.
There needs to be somebody paint that, like a good macabre artist, and just have them listen to these books.
Send us your fan art, people. Like, tag us in if you have fan art, if you've made some really cool thing, like visuals based on the descriptions in the book. Like, I want to see them. I want to have them if I can.
I should share more stuff that Pablo Santander, the illustrator from the Odd Sisters book, you know, those beautiful illustrations that were in the Odd Sisters. I think he might have done some of the Deadwoods. I'll have to take a look, and if I have them, I'll share them online. One of the things that I notice as a reader from other authors, I can always tell when they're in their favorite places, and I can tell when they're writing their favorite characters. Like, you feel that love. I try my hardest to have that love for every part of the book that I'm writing. But of course, I mean, like, Gretchen the other day was saying that, you know, how much she loved the Deadwoods, like, on social media. And I said, you know, something to the effect that, like, it's my favorite place to be, you know, when I'm writing. And she's like, I can tell. And I'm like, oh, people can tell. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
It is so lovingly created that it's just like, I mean, you could have just been like, and the trees were gray.
Right.
I suppose so. I mean, like, I can almost see the bark flaking off of the branches, and it's gorgeous. It's well done.
Yeah, thank you. It is my favorite place to be, like, in the series. I mean, I also love Morningstar. I mean, but probably because I created that kingdom as well. Mm-hmm. I love spending time there. And I mean, and obviously, I mean, I fell in love with all my villains in one way or another. Like, each time I write a new one, I fall in love with them for, like, a different reason. But and as much as I enjoyed writing Cruella's story, which was, like, the most removed from magic that we've ever done, you know, removed from the Many Kingdoms, you know, from the Odd Sisters, I still have the Odd Sisters meddling a little bit because I couldn't stay away from that. And then we got a bit of the Odd Sisters. We got a bit of a reveal about, you know, the original Cersei, which was kind of interesting and cold-hearted. But now that we're really back with them, like, back with the Odd Sisters, back with Cersei, Hazel, you know, all of them, Prim, I'm at home. Like, that's what I love most, even though I enjoyed the previous books. But let me tell you all, the book that I'm writing now, I'm still in the Deadwoods. Like, there, and so much more is going to be revealed about what happened after the Odd Sisters novel, right? So you guys, you have an idea of what happened, right? Like, they explain it a bit in the Hook book, but we actually get to see it on the page in this next book, which, yeah. So we're going to see how it all went down. Do you remember there's, like, a portion that Cersei mentions to James where she says there was, like, the breaking of the worlds? She refers to that, like, many times. We get, like, this, I think chapter 1 or chapter 2 is entitled The Breaking of the Worlds. So we get to see how that happened. And I'll tell y'all, the villain that is in the book that I'm writing is why the worlds broke. So
Oh, someone powerful. That's exciting.
Somebody just dropped a breadcrumb. That's what I see.
it is called Tea Time with Serena.
Spill the tea. Keep spilling the tea.
Spill the tea.
Oh, that's exciting. That means we're getting that. That means whoever it is, it's got to be someone like a villain of consequence now.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I'm very excited.
Yes, it is a villain of consequence. A lot of readers think they know who it is. They feel like I've been dropping clues about this person for a really long time. And they made some inferences, like, after reading this book. So we'll see what everybody thinks when the book comes out. We'll see if they were right.
Ooh.
Do y'all have any guesses? Any guesses who you think it might be? Like, just from reading the book, like, was there any like clues or standouts that made you feel like, oh, I know who's coming next?
Man, I tell you, I usually comb through your books to pick out any kind of details I can find. And I did pick up a trail in Hook, and I'm sniffing it out. But I'm not solid yet. I'm not solid, but there's a few villains out there that I'm thinking about, and I'm not 100% certain enough to make an educated guess.
Oh,
but I do believe that Tanitia is correct. I believe this is a villain that is a very big baddie. This is a very big villain. This is not a little underling villain. This is not a villainette. This is a big one. And I'm really, I feel it in my brains like flames that it's coming.
Flames. Yeah, I mean, the way when I wrote the outline for my editor for this particular book, and she realized how intricately, like, almost each story in the series is connected to the current book that I'm writing. So for example, there's a scene in the ballroom scene of Cold Hearted that connects to this book. There's like numerous scenes like throughout the series that connects to this book. And so I'm hoping, like, when readers, like, hit those touchstone moments, they'll be like, oh my God, like, and they'll put it all together, because she was like, I can't even believe that you so intricately, like, did this. Like, your readers are going to flip out. And, and I know that I share certain things with y'all because, we're a team and everything, but there's going to be stuff that I know is going to surprise you. You're going to be like, what? So I'm very excited to see what y'all think after.
Serena, you dropped so many Easter eggs in this book. I did. Like, there is just gasp after gasp. Like, every time I'm picking it up, like, I'm like, I read a chapter, I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I see where you're doing this. And then I read another chapter, I'm like, oh. and then I'm reading a little bit more. I'm like, oh no! Like, all the time.
All right, so you have reached the spoiler portion of Tea Time with Serena, Tanitia, and Gretchen. We're going to discuss all the spoilers in Never Never. So if you don't want to hear it, stop now. But make sure to read the notes in the description, because I will be reading a portion of Raising the Horseman at the end of this segment, and you don't want to miss that. All right, are you ready, ladies? We're going to discuss spoilers.
All right, so let's get into it. First of all, I thought, again, that James's background was brilliant. I also loved Smee's backstory. Like, I loved that he was working for the family and was charged with caring for James. And again, like, so much of what you set up with these characters' backstories just fit so seamlessly with what I came into this book already, like, knowing and understanding about Smee and Hook's dynamic and their relationship and how they interact with each other. And so, like, Smee's, like, loyalty and just urge to like serve Hook so much. It just made so much sense. It aligned so well. So I really liked that backstory touch. And then I also just loved that James, came from wealth. He came from this very cushy lifestyle, could have had his whole life handed to him on the silver platter, but there was this itching and longing for this adventure and this fantasy world and getting back there and his destiny and fate. And that's another big conversation I'm interested to have here too, is discussing fate versus like choice and I don't know. It was very interesting. I reflected on that a lot reading this book. So I'm sure we'll get into it. I won't get too far ahead of us.
I agree, though. I kind of fell in love with Smee too, and as soon as it was revealed, like who Smee was to James, I was just like, well, that makes so much sense. I love that. Like, it's just like I instantly loved him a little bit more. And being an aristocrat, they're very, they're very affluent. And so it's like James just is like expects it to be done. And Smee's over there just like, let me take care of this guy because he is not gonna survive if I'm not here. So let me help.
It made sense to me. I mean, because in the movie, Smee just seemed to be so attentive to James, and I wanted there to be a history behind that. I wanted there to be like a relationship before they got on the ship, and because every single one of the books that were based in London, there was an important character in each of the novels that was a servant to the person, and it just made sense to me that Smee would be that person in this novel. In Corella's book, it was, Miss Prickett, even though she ended up, with a bunch of different servants. But it was Miss Prickett, she ended up taking care of her. And then for, in Cold Hearted, for Lady Tremaine, she had like the maidservant that was older, who was trying to warn her about going to the many kingdoms. And so I'm such a fan of like Upstairs Downstairs and Duchess of Duke Street and Downton Abbey, and I feel like there's important stories happening below stairs. And I think that like I felt like James was lacking in a way, the way that Corella was lacking like parents who saw him and understood him, and but like Smee saw him and understood him, and even when he thought that James was just like a little kid making up fairy stories, he remembered all those stories like years later. Like one of my favorite scenes to write was Smee in the crow's nest while the Kraken is attacking. He was like the only one that was okay, because he was just up there. But he wasn't worried about himself. He was worried about James, who bravely dived into the ocean to save Blackbeard. Like Smee was one of my favorite characters in the story.
He was very heartwarming. Like I could just picture, it's like in my mind, I'm not only picturing like the animated Disney character, but I'm also picturing what's the guy that played with Dustin Hoffman and Hook? Like I'm picturing like both guys, and I'm just like, this guy's a teddy bear. I love him. He's so sweet. Like James needed a teddy bear.
Yeah, he definitely did. And Smee tried his hardest, to warn him. There's a lot of foreshadowing. In the book, where, James felt like at a point where he was being ushered onto a particular path, and it gave him pause for a minute. He's like, everything is working out too perfectly. I went into the very pub that Blackbeard is in, and I was able to talk my way onto the ship, and I found like the perfect clothes, and my servant is willing like to go with me, and he's my greatest companion, has been my whole life. Like this feels too preordained, but he decided that was a sign that it was meant to be. But when Smee saw the same signs, I think it was when he was standing on the dock waiting for James to arrive, he felt like they were being pushed to a perilous place, that they were making a horrible mistake, and all he wanted to do was turn around and run away and wrap up James and make him safe. But he couldn't do that. He had to go with him. He had to make sure that he was okay.
Yeah, we love Smee. We're Team Smee over here. We try. Also, again, I'm a big pirate fan, or like Pirates fan in general. I squealed. Obviously, Blackbeard showing up, that was amazing. That was so cool. I was like, what? He's going to be mentored and taken under the wing of Blackbeard. So I definitely want to talk a little bit about Blackbeard. And then my other moment that I was like squealing was Davy friggin' Jones shows up during the Battle of the Kraken. And I was like, oh, like as soon, it was so funny because that's the other thing is like as soon, I was listening to the audiobook, so I went back and forth. I would like read chapters here and there, and then I would like, if I was doing something, I wanted to listen to the audiobook while I was doing it. So I switched back and forth, but I happened to be listening at that time. And as soon as I heard that voice, he did such an amazing job emulating the version, and I can't remember the actor in Pirates of the Caribbean, but he did an amazing like version of that same voice. As soon as I heard the voice, I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, did Serena actually do this? I was like, this is so cool. I was having a fangirl moment. It was really exciting.
You know, on that note, I will say that Serena, you write one hell of an entrance. Like everybody has these just like goosebump, bringing on, spine tingling, like holy crap, this is happening entrances, and that was one of them, and it was like I had goosebumps. I was like, oh no.
Well, I mean, a character like Davy Jones needs an amazing entrance, right? I mean, and the thing is that, I mean, Blackbeard deserved an entrance too, but I wanted Blackbeard's like entrance to be more subtle, right? Because of the situation at hand. He kind of like stepped in and took James under his wing. But a character like Davy Jones needs a huge entrance. But from my point of view, I didn't even think about it from an epic point of view. I thought about the fact that it made sense, like historically, in terms of like mythology and all of that. Like Blackbeard is being pulled down to the depths of the ocean, and James is going after him. And James realized, I've gone down too far. There's no way I'm going to be able to survive this. And poor Smee is up like in the crow's nest, like fretting, like, will James be able to survive this? And I'm like, of course. Who needs to show up? It needs to be Davy Jones, and just for the record, it's like not necessarily the Davy Jones, like from the Pirates of the Caribbean movie franchise. As we all know, Davy Jones was a character before that came about. But I'm happy for readers to imagine them to be anyone that they would like to imagine the character to be. But I'm glad you all like enjoyed that part, because I had a blast writing that entire scene. I also, Tanisha, I love pirate stuff too, like a lot. I did a huge amount of research for about pirates and their ships, and I felt like when I was creating James, like he was kind of like me, because I was like a book nerd, like trying to figure out like all the pirate stuff for like another book that I'm writing, and I just find it fascinating. So it was fun. It was like all the information for this story was like right there.
Oh yeah. And then also, I think we have to just get into this like shocking twisted ending of like, they're all dead.
Right? I'm getting so many like people freaking out about this. So like I'm shook. People are doing like TikTok reaction videos. While they're reading it and stuff. It's hilarious. I knew that it would be surprising to readers, but I didn't think that it would be like such a big deal. Like, yeah, I love it. I love that people are loving this ending.
Yeah.
You gave me a little tease with it earlier. Like when Blackbeard turns to him and he's like, "What makes you think we made it out?"
Right.
And I was like, "No,
right?
She did not."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that just seems like a in a way, it's kind of like a Blackbeard thing to say, but I love the foreshadowing. I love to like drop the hints and give give readers reason to wonder, what might be coming. So I was surprised that it was such a big surprise, like at the ending. But I mean, and it also like harkens back to why James felt so at home, like in the Dead Woods. Why, they wanted him to stay. So I think, I think it's one of those reveals that a lot of things make sense in retrospect.
Oh, really? Like everything just kind of, as soon as that was revealed, like in my mind, it was like cards falling down. Like everything fell into place at that point. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Yes, that's why he was able to get into the Deadwoods, no problem. That's why he like.
I'm so glad you saw that, because like you can't walk into the Deadwoods unless you're of the blood of the Odd Sisters or you're dead, right? So yeah. I was hoping that readers would catch on to that too.
So good. I mean, and that's how this whole book is. It's just full of those little Easter eggs that if you've been following along with this game and you've been playing at home, folks, you are going to find so many little breadcrumbs and Easter eggs in there, and it will pull you right along and you will find your way to the end. It's so good.
So good. I love you, Gretchen, and I love you, Tanitia. I'm happy you both enjoyed the book so much.
Oh, so good. I mean, I feel like I've loved them all, and then I've just found myself getting, and it could just be because we're building on the lore over time, and so as the lore is getting built upon and more puzzle pieces are sliding into place, I'm just like, with each book, I feel like, not that I like each book more than the previous one, but it's I don't know how to explain it. It's just like building like my anticipation and my excitement.
It's like a new favorite every time. Like
it's my new
time,
favorite.
I'm like, oh, this one's my favorite, and then I'm like, dang, this one's my favorite. So good.
That's my intention, So that's awesome. I mean, because that's how I feel too. Like each book is my favorite. Obviously, in retrospect, there are books that are like deeply embedded in my heart, like Mother Knows Best, and Maleficent, because she's my favorite gal, but they do all become my favorite for like a time. And there's even stories that I didn't think would. I mean, James Hook wasn't necessarily a character that I was like, oh, I'm dying to write about him. But like with Gothel, the more that I thought about it, and the more I planned, I fell more and more in love with his character, and I enjoyed writing him. I mean, he's funny, he's like dorky and sweet and handsome and all the things, and I had so much fun. And I'm glad that you all enjoyed the story. All right, so next we have an interview with John York. I had the pleasure of interviewing him about what it was like to be James Hook for a time. It's in audio, and I hope that you all enjoy it, because I had the best time chatting with him. He is the narrator from Never Never, A Tale of Captain Hook, and I hope you enjoy it. It was so fun chatting with him, you all. It was like, he was such a sweet man. I know that you both like enjoyed listening to his audiobook.
Loved it. He was so good. He was just all the different voices that he chose for the character. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about, like how he came up with the different voices and made the choices that he made. It was so spot on. I loved it.
Yeah. He was saying that one of the voices that he enjoyed most was doing Blackbeard's voice. And I loved that he was so like into the story. He, really picked up on the fact that there was like a father-son relationship going on between James and Blackbeard, and I liked that he resonated with this story so much. He was so sweet. He was saying that when he was prepping the script before reading it, as they have to do, that he would forget that it was actual work that he was needing to do. He said that he would wake up every morning and go, I get to do Never Never today, and it warmed my heart that he enjoyed working on it so much. And he had said something to the effect that, that it was one of those projects that would stay with him for a long time. And that just made me really happy. And he is such a dear person. So I know readers are going to enjoy hearing what his journey was like reading James's story.
There was a lot of love in his performance. That's kind of what I took away from it, because you could just kind of tell how much he enjoyed doing it. Like it was so good. I mean, it was like you're swept into it, and I prefer audiobooks because it's just like you can kind of just complete audio sensory change there, and I could just close my eyes and be right there with him. And he did a really good job. It was apparent how much he loved it.
Yeah, I'd never created for lack of a better word, relationship with any of the audiobook people. Like, they're all amazing. They've all done really good jobs. But John was the first audiobook narrator that sent me a cute little video on Twitter congratulating me on the release of the book. And he was in London. He doesn't live in London, but happened to be in London that day. He is in the UK. He happened to be in London that day. And if I remember correctly, Big Ben was in the background, and he made this cute video saying that, that the book is out today. He had the pleasure of recording it, and that it was special to him. And I just instantly endeared me to him in that moment. And I was like, I have to get to know this person. And so when he asked me to be on his podcast, which I'd like to share with all the readers, will be happening this Friday. And then I had the opportunity to interview him for our first Tea Time segment. It was more pleasurable than I could possibly fathom. I had a great time.
It's my pleasure to introduce John York, the amazing gentleman who narrated the audiobook version of my latest villains novel, Never Never, A Tale of Captain Hook. Thank you so much for being with us today, John.
Oh, thank you for having me. Hello, it's lovely to be here.
Hello. I know that readers are going to be thrilled to hear about your journey narrating James' story, and I am as well. Tell us, what was it like being Captain James Hook for a time?
It was an incredible experience being Captain James. And yeah, it was one that's going to stay with me forever. I found myself kind of immediately drawn to James. He was courageous and brave and curious and driven and all the things that I want to be. So it was a real pleasure to sort of be that for while in the booth. But yeah, it was just exploring, going through his story, learning more about him, and on the read through before production, while marking up the script and coming up with all the characters and such, it really allowed me to sort of experience that as a fan of the material first, which was tremendous fun, and then it sort of kicked in that I was there to do a job. But yeah, it was just great fun. And I'd like to say that I found similarities between James and myself. Maybe that's being too kind on myself. But yeah, it was tremendous fun, and over too quickly. It really was.
Oh, you've been so generous and sweet. Since the book was, the book and the audiobook was released, I've never I've never seen a video made by the narrator of one of my stories before, like promoting the book, promoting the audiobook, and just saying like congratulations for the release. And that instantly endeared me to you. It was like I was like, oh, what a sweet gentleman. Like, I want to reach out to this person. And I'd already been hearing such lovely remarks about the job that you did for Hook. Well, I should say the job that you did for James, because you were James, like throughout the entire story. But, and as, as I think I've mentioned to you before in other conversations, like you so seamlessly were able to capture James, but yet you transitioned his character as his character changed until he became Hook at the end of the story. And that resonated through your voice and through your performance. I mean, so many people have remarked on that, on how you were able to just like draw them into the story in a way that they found really enchanting. And for me, that's like a dream, that's who you want to narrate your story. And I feel that you brought your own magic to this book, and I'm grateful.
Oh, thank you very much. That really does mean the world, and to hear that people are enjoying it, and that's just that's everything that we want. And as for sort of, I really tried actively to have that subtle but evolution of James, as he went through and experienced those things, and went through some pretty tough times and difficult times, and he's discovering things about himself, about the world, about what he wants, all through the book. And I wanted that to reflect through his voice as he matures, and and his different things are revealed to him. Of course, that's going to have an impact on your mentality, the way you see the world, the way that you feel about yourself. And that's all, as a narrator, your only tools really are your voice. So I really did try and actively evolve it, ever so slightly through there, just to have him sounding a little bit older, a little bit more mature, a little bit more sort of is reflective of those experiences that he went through.
Absolutely. Was there a scene that you found particularly fun to record? Do you have a memory?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, well, first of all, the whole thing was fun, but I think it's anything with Blackbeard. I really enjoyed Blackbeard in this book. I really enjoyed doing the voice for Blackbeard. Their relationship, and it was almost sort of father sonly, wasn't it? It was that mentor vibe going on, and that was a lot of fun to do. So the scenes with him, also anything with Mr. Smee, it was, and then I don't want to spoil anything, but the end, the sort of last 3 chapters were pretty, were pretty exciting for various reasons that I won't spoil.
I was going to ask but this might be a spoiler question. Was there any portion of the story that was particularly heartbreaking for you? Like, because I'm assuming that you're like me and you take these characters on, and then you become them, and so you're living their experience, it seems like, through the narration of their story. Was there a scene that resonated with you that just made you feel heartbroken for your
there was a few points. I think, I think because as a younger person watching Peter Pan and getting into that material, but Peter Pan was a hero, in my eyes. And then when Peter Pan came in up in this book, it was like, oh, it was special. It was a special character, and then things didn't really play out in the way that you first thought, and it kind of, it was hard on James and hard on myself to sort of have that experience and have him disappointed with what he found there, and obviously that leads to various choices and states of mind, and I felt that with him. I think I would have done the exact same.
Yeah, I wish that James had just stayed in the Deadwoods with Cersei and Hazel and Primrose, and that he would have just lived his life in the many kingdoms, because it's like almost like the perfect place for James. thinking
Yeah.
about him as a child and the things that he was into, and to come, he must have his desire to go to Neverland and be friends with Peter and the Lost Boys must have been so great to keep him from staying in a place that was like almost made for him, the Many Kingdoms. Like he could have spent the rest of his life exploring there and probably being very happy, but he chose to go to Neverland.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that was, it's a trait that I really quite liked in him. He sort of stuck to his guns there. And I know it didn't work out all that best for him, but it was that courageousness and that, the curiosity and that, as you say, that sort of drivenness to get what he wanted. He knew what he wanted, and he had this sort of one mission to get there. And I quite respected the fact that he sort of stuck to his guns, even though it didn't work out that well, if you get what I mean.
What's the most challenging aspect of narrating books for audiobook versions?
I would say, it can be the material sometimes, in the sense that you can come across some, very dark material, very difficult material, especially in the nonfiction world. You can, I've narrated a lot of books on serial killers and tragedies and war and things like that. That can be very difficult. That it can affect you. And I think that was one that I didn't expect really, actually, before doing this job. I just assumed, it's just words on a page. But then obviously, because you put a lot of feeling into it, you put a lot of effort into it, it does affect you and it stays with you. So there's been certain projects that have, about not very nice topics that have stayed with you, and especially learning more about them, victims and serious crimes and things. That's very difficult. Or it can be accents, a bit different flavor for you.
Right.
It's there can be some. I've done books where there's been 15, 16 different accents in a chapter. I had a book where a lot of the scenes were like, the UN, United Nations round table, with all the different accents going. That was quite fun. That was quite tricky.
That must have been maddening in a way, like to have to go back and forth to all those different accents. I did when the Cruella de Vil book was coming out, I wrote that book in first person. And so I kind of I really got into the character more so than any of the others. And the fact that I was writing specifically in her voice when I wrote the story.
Yeah.
And so I took it a step further on my social media and was acting as if like Cruella was taking over my social media, and she was the one that was interacting with readers. And then I thought to myself, well, wouldn't that be fun if I interviewed Cruella de Vil, right?
Yeah.
And I did it in one take. Like I didn't do any editing or anything because I don't have like the savvy to do that. And so of course I flubbed it like quite a few times, but I finally nailed it. And I felt utterly mad, like trying to I'm like, oh, thank you for joining us today, Cruella. Like, here's the first question. And then I go right into speaking like Cruella. And then I have to respond to Cruella. And like, I was just having this like conversation with myself outside of my body. And it was like, it's out of my mind. And it was maddening, but it was so much fun though at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like imagining that for you, trying to do like 50 different like accents, like in the same.
I guess it just depends. I guess it sort of depends on how well you have them down, because obviously you have to have them down to a certain level before you have a go in the booth. You're never just sort of throwing it out there. But obviously there's going to be some that you feel more comfortable doing than others. So if you're comfortable in doing them, it's tremendous fun. And to be honest, after a while, you don't even think about it, because you go into the character rather than the voice. Right. It's sort of, you think, oh, well, this is, Edmund, and Edmund speaks like this, and, whatever. So it just kind of, I tend to think of it a little bit more like that. But yeah, you do feel a little bit mad. Yeah.
Well, I'm also not a professional narrator like you. I mean, yes, I have a background in theater, but I'm just like, I guess I'll try to do a Corella voice. It worked. It was fine. Like, I got the laugh down pretty well. Like,
Yeah.
but I did feel a little kooky, like having to go back and forth with myself like that. But
Yeah.
yeah. So, what would you like? What's the like initial process like for you getting cast for for project like Never Never? Like, how does that
Yeah.
work?
Yeah, sure. So actually, it was a strange one. I have a podcast, as you may know, and I just happened to be interviewing a very fantastic narrator called Anne Marie Lewis, and she we talked and interviewed her. We were talking about narration and audiobooks and such, and then she very kindly sent me an email afterwards, a few hours after we'd wrapped the interview. And she said, "Oh, I've just," she was part of this agency, or some group. And there was this, closed, very secretive note saying, the specs for the book. And she said, "I know we don't really know each other, before this interview, but this kind of sounds like you." And I didn't really think much of it because you sort of taught, when auditioning for projects, you're taught to just do them and then forget about it, because your chances of getting it are so small. You don't want to be upset. You don't want to get upset for that sort of, for not getting it. So I did the audition and sent it off, not really knowing what it was for. Actually, no, sorry, I didn't send off an audition. I sent off a message saying, I'd like to put myself forward for the audition, if that was even possible.
Right.
And then, so I sent that message off, not, sort of forgetting about it. And then I think I had to do a small sample. If I'm remembering correctly, I had to do a small sample, which again, I didn't know what it was for.
That's
so it was kind
strange.
of,
So you didn't
yeah, I didn't
How-
know. Yeah. So then I sent that over, and then I got another email back. And that was when they said, "Oh, it's for a project for Disney. It's Never Never." And they told me about it. And then from that moment on, I've never ever in my career wanted a book more than that. It was torture, because obviously, you're like, well, the chances of, you don't know how many people are going up against it. You don't know if I'm the right fit for it. And all I knew is how much I wanted it. And I couldn't tell anybody either, because you're supposed to, you're not supposed to tell anybody. So I had to keep it secret. So I did this audition, and I really tried to put everything I had into it, and did some research and really got in there and tried to bring a little bit of myself to it. And then and then I listened to that audition on repeat for about 2 hours, trying to imagine each time it started again, imagining, okay, pretend I've never heard it, and this is the first time I've, and then I redid a little bit. So I spent ages on it. And then I had an excruciating 5 days of thinking every time my mind had, if I was at work and my mind had drifted off onto other things, I thought, I haven't heard back from them yet. And then it came through, and I got offered the job, and it was incredible. It was really great fun. And then it was and then I was just excited for it, really. Before then, I couldn't wait to prep the manuscript, which prepping a manuscript isn't always the fun task that it sounds. It's quite, it's a lot of work. You're reading the book through, you're making a lot of notes, you're highlighting the characters, you're working out what's been said, you're making sure that you understand it, you're writing any questions down that pop up. You're making notes of everybody's accents, any, intonations and all that sort of thing. So it's a lot of work.
I get notes. I get those notes, actually. So I'm assuming like either you or somebody on your team sends that to the audio department at Disney, right?
Yeah.
And then they send it to my editor, and then they ask me, what kind of accent does this character have? They'll ask me about pronunciations, because sometimes I'll get notes back, if the narrator doesn't know how to pronounce like certain names and stuff.
Yeah.
And lately, but in the past, they've asked me to spell them phonetically. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be easier if they can just hear how I say it? So I've been doing voice files lately. So I'm not sure if you got my voice files or how they did it. But I'm like, well, it's pronounced Cersei, and it's pronounced Flonsa, and it's, Yeah, and I find that process interesting. I'll get questions from the audio department going like, well, what type of voice, did you have in mind for,
Yeah.
in this book and things like that, and to just have you appear like magic. And like, I'm not even kidding. It's like you appear like magic, and you encapsulate the character, and not only that, but the material. I'm not just saying this because we're chatting today. You can tell when the person who's reading your book who actually likes the book. You could tell the difference. And so it made my heart happy that
thank you.
That you narrated my book, and that you did such a fantastic job, and that you seem to resonate with the story and the character.
Oh, thank you very much. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I did. I was having a blast from start to finish. Yeah, I mean, even you mentioned at the start the little video I did on Twitter. And it just sort of shows. I was counting down the days for that release, and you don't get that with every project and stuff. Not for for negative reasons and stuff. It's just some things stay with you personally, and this was the case of that. And I just so happened to be in London. I'm not from London, originally. I don't live in London. I live quite, the north of England, but I just so happened to be in London. Where the story starts, and when on the release day, so I thought it'd be a waste not to take a video there.
It was brilliant. It was so brilliant to see you standing there with the book, like where the book took place, and it made the release day more special for me, like, because and to have you see you be so excited for the book, and it's just so generous, and the sweet things that you were saying about it. It made me excited to see that, and to know that you were a part of this process, and a very integral part in helping to make this book even more magical.
So, thank you. No, it was absolutely my pleasure. And it really felt, I think that was it as well, is it felt special, from the get-go. And it was like the whole process. I mean, the narration process, I think I mentioned it before, but none of this book felt like work to me. I couldn't wait to jump out and get started. And it was, not a single second of it was wished away. So, yeah, not saying, I mean, obviously there's times you're not always comfortable. You always, you always have the forefront in mind of, am I doing the best job? Did I say that in the right way? Did I do this? You're always sort of doubting yourself, or, have to do things again. But everything came from that. I really need this to be special,
Yeah, I can relate when earlier, when you were talking about when you were prepping your audition tape, listening to it over and over again. And then, each time trying to listen to it as if you hadn't heard it before, or, trying your best to listen to it with someone else's ears. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's what I go through when I write the different versions of my scripts. When I sit down and read them, I try to read them for the first time, how is my editor going to be looking at this? How will the readers be looking at this? And try to look at it from outside myself. That's a hard thing to do. But,
yeah.
So I was feeling for you while you were sharing that part of your process.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's a skill, and I think you learn it, for better or for worse. As as a narrator, if you I've done over 300 books now, so you have that skill of being able to really listen to your voice as if it is somebody else, and because I think, just like a lot of other people, when I first started this, I would cringe at my voicemail. Every time I'd hear a recording of my voice, I'd say, oh, that's not how I sound. Oh gosh, that sounds awful. and then, but one good thing about being a narrator, oh, many good things, but one of the good things is that it really knocks that out of you. You become very comfortable with how you sound, and then you get to be able to switch off that part of, oh, this is me, and you get to listen to it. You know, does that sound like James? Does that sound like Smee? Does that sound like, you know, someone telling this story? Is this the voice that, you know, that you could imagine doing that? So it took a while to get there, but I think now I can just switch off and say that sounds like that character.
That's amazing. I'm so happy that we had a chance to talk today, not only for my Tea Time podcast today, but we got to speak earlier for your podcast. And I was wondering if you'd like to give my my viewers a bit of information on when they can expect to hear that and the name of the show, and we can also get a link for it in so that we can point people in that direction when your podcast airs.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So my podcast is the Audiobook Club with John York. So it's essentially it's a podcast celebrating audiobooks and storytelling, and I interview audiobook narrators, authors such as yourself, and I've had comedians on, I've had editors on, producers, sound engineers, directors. It's been it's been fantastic, actually. It sort of started out as, you know, a way to celebrate audiobooks and things. It's just ended up giving me an excuse to just meet really interesting people and have a natter with them. So it's turned into a real sort of a passion, and the audience has grown, and we have I get messages from all sorts of people, you know, if they're working in the audiobook industry, whether they're, you know, up and coming writers, or whether they just, you know, like a good story. So it's really nice to do that. There's also if you have Twitter or anything and you'd like to follow me, I'll be posting more about the podcast, because we're actually filming it as a video, as a vidcast, I believe it's called, or so I'm told, with a company, and I'm told also that in the next few months it's going to be on a streaming service.
How exciting! Yeah. Congratulations!
Thank you very much. Yeah, and it's going to be a different format, more of a visual format, and we've shot 2 episodes so far, and we're doing a few more, shooting some in about 2 weeks' time. They're a lot of fun, and we have some really great guests there. So yeah, if that sounds like something that you may be interested in, keep an eye out, and I'll be posting it to the high heavens when it does come out.
Absolutely will. Well, you happen to be on our very first episode of Tea Time. We do video as well, but we decided that we would do like an audio segment for our first Tea Time with the segment with you. So I just feel lucky that I get to have you on our very first episode of Tea Time. And I just, I had a blast speaking with you today during your podcast, and I'm thankful that you've taken time out of your evening to speak with me today. And again, thank you for the beautiful job that you did narrating Never Never.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. It means the world. And thank you for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to catching the rest of it. Thank you so much.
All right. So speaking of, we mentioned like every book that comes out is my new favorite book. So I am very looking forward to my about to be new favorite book. Can you tell us about Raising the Horseman?
Yes, Raising the Horseman is a standalone novel. It's not connected to the Villain series. It's coming out on September 6th. I mean, I hope that one day it will be a series. That is my hope. At the moment, we'll just see. We'll just see if readers love it, and if enough people want to see more, then I'll have the opportunity to write more books, because I certainly have more ideas like in my mind. And I think that once you get to the end of the story, you'll see that I have some ideas about where I'd like to see this go. So I'm gonna go ahead and read a description of the book for y'all, And maybe, what do you guys think? Should I read maybe part of the prologue?
That would be amazing.
Yes.
Would that be fun?
We'll take what we
Yes.
can get, Serena. Give us all of the breadcrumbs.
All right. So, here we go. From the New York Times bestselling author, that's me, of the Disney villain series comes the ghostly new standalone novel that reimagines the legend of Sleepy Hollow through the eyes of a modern teen. The 200th anniversary of the Headless Horseman's legendary haunting of Sleeping Hollow is approaching, but Cat Van Tassel wants nothing to do with the town's superstition celebrations. As a descendant of the original Katrina Van Tassel, Cat knows that she's expected to fulfill her ancestors' legacy by someday marrying her longtime boyfriend and running the prestigious family estate. But Cat dreams of a life outside of Sleepy Hollow. Then Cat meets Isadora, a new girl in town who challenges Cat to re-examine those expectations, opens her eyes to the possibility that ghosts are real, and makes her question who she really wants to be and be with. When Cat is given the original Katrina's diary, the new legend begins to take shape, one that weaves together the past and the present in eerie ways. Can Cat uncover a 200-year-old secret and trace its shocking reverberations into her own life in time to protect those she truly loves? Fans of the series will delight in the supernatural coming-of-age tale that finally gives the women of Sleepy Hollow a chance to tell their side of the story. And that's honestly what's most important to me about this series, is that for the first time, we get to see the legend of Sleepy Hollow from a woman's point of view. I mean, I love the adventures of Ichabod Crane like everybody else does, but Katrina Van Tassel really has no voice in practically any of the adaptations of her story, and so much like not even in the original tale. So I really wanted to tell a story that would be from Katrina's point of view, and more importantly, and at the same time, I should say, rather than importantly, from a modern day perspective. Sorry, I flubbed because my dog was like doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing. I was trying to hold it together.
It's all good.
All right. So
Okay. I am super excited about this. I absolutely adore the Horseman lore, and I know you always do your research, so I'm really excited to see how you turn these characters into the modern day life. And I'm also very excited to see what you do with Katrina Van Tassel, because I totally agree there is not enough of her, and I think that she is definitely an important part of the story. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
I mean, she is absolutely like the reason for the story, and that's the thing that sort of confounds me. That, I mean, the entire story revolves around winning her love. I mean, she is the daughter of the Van Tassels who's going to inherit this farm. There's two different people like fighting for her love, but really, are they fighting for her love? Or are they fighting for the chance to take over this estate? And I mean, really, I feel besides the Horseman, she's the most important person in the story, and I think she deserves more screen time.
Yeah, I'm really excited for getting that perspective. It'll be a new take that has not been done at all before on the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. So I'm excited for that. And then I think I'm really excited to see how things play out in modern day Sleepy Hollow, how it ties back, how the modern day characters are sort of uncovering the legend and the supernatural forces that may or may not be at play in the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Like that to me is really exciting. I know in the past I get frazzled with time jumping, but I feel like I'm really excited for the time jumping aspect of going back and forth to these two stories that are going to be happening sort of linearly.
Yeah, I think you're going to be okay with the way that time works in this. Like, just knowing how you are in time. The thing about this book is that both stories are happening linearly, and so Kat's story is moving forward, and Katrina's story is moving forward, and Kat is learning about the stuff that happened to Katrina, and both of their stories are very parallel, and that's paramount to the story because Kat is learning more about herself and her own situation through what happened to her great grandmother. So I think you'll be okay. I think one of the biggest sort of feedback things that I've gotten from readers is that they were a little bit, feeling like it was hard to sort of keep track of what was happening to Kat and what was happening to Katrina because their names are similar. But I don't think that you're gonna have that issue. I think that I hope that the readers are going to be surprised by the real legend of Sleepy Hollow. And I feel strange saying that because obviously the real legend of Sleepy Hollow is written by, Washington Irving. But if you're familiar with that tale, we're not sure who scared Ichabod Crane away, right? We're not sure if it was Headless Horseman. We're not sure if it was Brom because he was jealous of Katrina's love for, or infatuation with Crane. And in my story, Katrina makes it very clear who scared Ichabod away. And I hope that readers will be intrigued by the reveal of that at the end.
Oh, I'm excited for that. That sounds amazing.
I mean, is there any way we could get a little tease?
I think you might be able to get a little tease. If you don't mind, maybe I'll just read a little bit of the prologue. And
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that. All right. I'm not the best at reading, but here we go. Prologue, entitled Sleepy Hollow. If the Indians of Sleepy Hollow are to be believed, every single person who lives here has had at least one supernatural experience. It's a ghostly place, still firmly rooted in its past, steeped in tradition and superstition. It's a dreamlike and drowsy town, only disturbed by the ghost and the shadows that still haunt it. Something holds sway over the people who live here. It fills their minds with dark stories, strange visions, and bizarre beliefs. The town of Sleepy Hollow, many say, is haunted. There are some haunted by memories, some by tradition, while others insist they are haunted by the spirits of this ghostly place. Some tell tales of having witnessed the apparitions of dead soldiers replaying their last moments on the battlefield, or a sinister set of eyes peering at them from the hollow of an old tree, or hearing the whispers dancing on the breeze just over their shoulders while they walk deserted forest paths. But the spirit that seems to dominate their minds and imaginations most is the phantom of the Headless Horseman. A headless man astride a black spectral horse. It is believed that he was a Hessian trooper who lost his head to cannon fire during the Revolutionary War. It is a ghastly image, the poor man's head being carried away by cannonball, never to be found again. This spirit haunts the nightmares of the children of Sleepy Hollow, only to creep back into their dreamscapes years later. Adults.
I'm so excited. I know. I love the spookiness. I love that we're going dark. I'm so excited for this. I'm so excited.
It's going to be so good. I got goosebumps. I'm ready. I'm ready.
When I was preparing to write this book, I go through like a phase of prepping before I write stuff, and for like a good month before I started writing this, I was just listening to Washington Irving's version on audio tape as I slept, like every single night. And so I feel like the prologue was very much influenced by his writing style. I really wanted to capture the spirit of the original tale before I dropped us into modern day and our deliciously beautiful and charming modern day teen Kat, because I'm like in love with her, and she just sort of makes like this crazy sort of entrance into our world. But I wanted to really like put people into the spirit of what this book is, which is the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. So
you really set the mood.
Oh, yeah.
I love you so much, Gretchen. You really
The
said
mood.
Oh yeah, I
Yes.
feel like I'm in Sleepy Hollow on a creepy, like moonlit night, just fog rolling over. Like I feel it. I'm in it and I'm ready.
I know that you two are in the process of reading Sleepy Hollow. Reading Raising the Horseman in preparation for our next show. So I know that you're probably like not in like the scariest moments of the book, because they do happen later. But what are your impressions so far? Do you mind sharing like what your takeaways are at the moment, or is that a weird thing to ask since you're not
I'm early on still. I'm very in the very first couple of chapters, but what I will say is I'm very intrigued by Kat. I there's something about her in that she's very like her skepticism, her lack of interest in, I think from an outside perspective, I would be like, Kat, that's so dope. Like you're a direct descendant of this epic legendary story. Like you're like that's so cool. Why are you not more excited about this? And she's like, like I could care less. Like whatever. Like these people are weird. So there's something about that like draws me into her, and I'm very curious to see her journey. So yeah, I'm excited to get to know that character more and see how she evolves, or maybe her views maybe evolve over the course of the tale.
I am right before stuff goes sideways, and I know it's coming. So I am like, I've caught myself like chewing on my nails while I'm reading, because there's a lot of tension being built, and I am super excited for it. I can't wait to see how you turn this into it. I think Kat is an amazing character, and I think Isadora is so much fun, and I really like what you're doing with them, and I think that they are just bright shining lights right now, and I think that they are going to be representatives for very, very special people, and I think that's really awesome. But I also really like how you're turning that character into a strong person, and a strong, like, in their mind, and not just cynical all the time.
Yeah, I think the thing about Kat that I find interesting is that, and I don't want to give away any spoilers, but Tanitia, you'll understand, I think, later in the story why she has told herself that, the ghosts aren't real, why these legends like annoy her. It plays very deeply into the toxic relationship that she's in with her boyfriend, Blake. And I think like once she meets Isadora and they become friends and she sees her life from an outside perspective, because sometimes when you're in, a gaslighting relationship, or you're in a relationship that's toxic, that it's not the right place for you to bleed. That you're not comfortable. That you're not happy. But sometimes you don't really see it for what it is until you see it through somebody else's eyes. And I feel like that's what's happening for Kat in the story. Once Isadora jumps on the scene, she sees her life differently. And Isadora is there to let Kat shine. She's not there to take the credit or point her in any direction or tell her what she has to do. She's like, what do you want, girl? How do you want to live your life? Like, what is most important for you? Let me support that. And I think that's why, the relationship evolves, the way that it does. I don't know where you are in the story, but their relationship is everything to me. Like I love them, and I love that I was able to tell a story about young bi women being a bi woman like myself. And I love not only being able to give that representation, for other people in the LGBT community, but to tell a story that's authentically me as well. And I hope that readers enjoy it.
I'm excited to get to continue.
Yeah.
Sorry if that was a spoiler for y'all, but I mean, I think it's been made pretty clear online, that it's a, LGBTQ book. And, from the get-go, Blake does not seem like a very good boyfriend. So a very good.
Yeah. And I will definitely tell you my thoughts on him when we do the next tea time.
Also, too, I like the.
I have opinions.
I'm assuming it was intentional. The play on names here. You have like Blake and Isadora, and then you have Ichabod and Brom. Like, I'm very curious. Like, was that?
Tanisha, you are too smart for words. Stop it. You are too smart for color TV. Stop. Like,
okay, I'm here for it. I'm excited. Okay, I got to catch those little things. I'm like, oh, I'm noticing something here.
You notice. I love how you notice all the things, Tanisha. You give me life with this. I swear. Like, I'm just like, oh God, Tanisha, she figured it out again. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm ready for it. I'm excited to see how everything plays out. Like I said, I just got started. So, and then obviously I had to read Never Never. So I'm excited to return to finding the Horseman and really dive into it. So.
Oh, yeah, so exciting. Yeah. Well, the book comes out on September 6th. It's available for pre-order now. So if readers are interested, they can get a pre-order of Raising the Horseman, and it'll be out soon. And in the meantime, we're going to be making some cool video recordings, like sharing different snippets of different sections of the book. And yeah.
So what I'm hearing is more breadcrumbs are coming, more little trails.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. More breadcrumbs are coming. Yeah.
We will take it all.
Yes.
All right. So thank you for joining us for our very first episode of Tea Time with Serena, Tanisha, and Gretchen. And we had such a great time talking about Never Never today and teasing Raising the Horseman that's coming out on September 6th. We want to thank John York for the amazing interview that he did with us today. It was an incomparable experience being able to chat with a narrator of like an audiobook. And next time on Tea Time, we will be taking a deeper dive into Raising the Horseman, and we'll see what these amazing ladies think of that tale. And I can't wait. And I hope that you will plan to join us next month when we do our next episode of Tea Time with Serena, Tanisha, and Gretchen.
Ready for tea time.
Ready for tea time, ladies.
Cheers.
Thank you for watching, and thank you to our sponsors and Patreon producers for making this video possible. Hit the subscribe button so the creepy fun never has to end. This is Hannah reminding you to keep it creepy.